Chapter 8.
So what we've found with red people is there are also herbs and spices to help people detoxify. So the herbs for red people are coriander, oregano, rosemary, and the spices cumin, fenugreek, ginger and mace. So again, we make these as a mix when people need to detoxify. So people who've got high chemical loading may need to detoxify, and the mixture of those spices and herbs as a liquid and taken as a tea. So with these, what you do is you have a glass of hot water and you put 10, 20 drops in there and you have it as a hot drink. Okay? And that's very good and it's very cleansing for people. We found that there's a probiotic for each body type, and red people need plantarum. And this is to help their immune systems. Plantarum lives down the lower end of the small intestine, and is very important as a hormone, an immune modulator of Th3 cells. Okay, so that's basically the sort of red picture, so people who are red. Green. Now green people are strong and muscular, okay, but we have a lot of intramuscular water retention, and that makes us blow up when we're under stress, because up goes our aldosterone, and therefore up goes our sodium, and up goes our water. So you gain a lot of weight when you're under stress, and when you burn your adrenals out, you go and you lose weight. So people who gain a lot of weight, lose weight, are the adrenals. So this is the adrenal cortex or green people. Good resistance to disease, get well quickly, work hard, play hard, the adrenals enjoy sodium and cholesterol. Cholesterol makes the steroid hormones, and sodium helps regulate with the adrenals. And so greens crave salty things. So do you crave salty things? Yeah. You see that packet of crisps there and you think, I shouldn't really. But it's not really the crisps you want, it's the salt. That's why the salted nuts. Do you ever eat unsalted nuts? No. Right. They get stronger and stronger as the day goes on. Okay? So don't marry a red because they're early to bed, early to rise. We get stronger. And those who stimulate their adrenals tend to drink alcohol in the evenings in order to relax. You see, it's medicinal. They tend towards, the Russians like this bit. They all decided they wanted to be green after that. They tend towards high blood pressure and some types of heart disease. Basically, they need a basic Stone Age type of diet. The Pritikin diet suits us best. Hard working, as we say. Big square hands. That's the key thing, is a big square hand. Okay. We tend to be above 5'8" as men, and 5'7", 5'8" as women. Right, green people, they have a strong affinity to nickel. And I had this. I was always allergic to nickel and the buckle of the genes, and yet I was showing red. So this was interesting how I changed. They require bromides for their immune system. They're chemically sensitive, which I said, because they've drawn the short straw with the Cytochrome P450s. We are very sensitive to solanine foods, as the deadly nightshade. So that's why when Clive said, it's potatoes for lunch, I thought, oh. Potatoes, tomatoes, aubergines, green peppers. These are the things that make up your green salads, your Greek salads, your Russian salads, is all this. Okay? And after a certain while, the solanine foods build up to a certain point, and then bang, they hit in, and they work by inhibiting the production of acetylcholine. So you get aching legs, you get heavy aching legs. I call it the heavy leg syndrome. You start to dilate the pupils of the eyes so you don't see very close up. You get saliva drying and so on. You get trouble with the bowels, anywhere where the parasympathetic nervous system, which is operated, and most of all the memory, because remember the memory requires acetylcholine. So too much of those foods, you go to bits. But the salvation, and the salvation is a herb which gets it out of the system very quickly, which is lemon balm. Okay, so one of the herbs that shows up with green people always is lemon balm. We need a daily dose of lemon balm, but we have it within the herbal mix, and it helps us to detoxify, because we've got to keep those chemicals at bay. And we're not very good with casein. Now, casein is milk protein. I know casein apparently is in other foods as well, but it's primarily in cow's cheese. So we need to move over to sheep and goat. We can still have the cheese, that's the good news, but the bad news is we've got to give up the cow and go for sheep and goat. The odd bit doesn't matter, but on a regular basis we should move towards goat. So that's the Cytochrome P450 chart. You see what I've done here is I've color-coded the Cytochrome P450s into blue, green and red. So this tells you which color it is and which one is defective. Doesn't mean you haven't got it, but you've drawn the short straw of it, okay? So you're not very good. This chart's available, or if you've got a big magnifying glass, you can probably read it from there. Supplements. The greens. We need B1, thiamine. We have to get that pyruvate into the mitochondria, and this is where B1 works, to convert pyruvate to acetyl-CoA. So this gives us the energy, thiamine. B6, we need B6, we need folic acid, we need hydroxycobalamin, or the B12, to ensure that we don't get hypoxia, and we need choline. Remember the red needed inositol? We need choline to make acetylcholine, because we've got this tendency towards having low acetylcholine because we eat too many potatoes. Okay, so did you know that potatoes were a food discovered in South America, although Walter Raleigh brought them back from North America, in Peru and Ecuador, and they didn't eat them. They used them for pig food. Okay. So the pigs obviously weren't green. Pigs were obviously blue. Most animals show to blue, but they never gave them to humans at all. Okay. So it was a real present from Sir Walter Raleigh. So if you ever go to Russia, you'll find potatoes appear in all forms. I went down to breakfast the other day there and was so pleased because there are mushrooms on the menu for breakfast. And my translator said, she said, they're not mushrooms, they're potatoes carved as mushrooms. So they're very clever, you know, they had stalks, the lot. As soon as you put them in your mouth, they were boiled potatoes. I thought they were just freshly white-capped mushrooms from the forest. No. So this is our mix of our foods that we need. We need boron, and that's interesting. Boron is certainly for bone density. There may be other uses of boron in the body that we don't know about, but certainly bone density. Copper. We need selenium. This helps us remember selenium, very important here, converts T4 to T3, and again helps us detoxify using glutathione peroxidase. We need silica, keep our nails and healthy and hair, and we need zinc like everybody else. Okay, so that's the cocktail basically for the green person. So lots of vitamins, lots of minerals, but you'll notice it's B1 and not B2 for us. Oils, we're very lucky because we don't have flax. Very fortunate there. Grapeseed, hazelnut, peanut and sesame. So if you remember, peanut and sesame was the old wonder oil, but we've expanded that out for green people by adding grapeseed and hazelnut. Herbs, rosemary and lemon balm. Spices, cumin, ginger, and we're so lucky because we got star anise, okay, which is my favourite of all time, along with the ginger. And we need L-lactobacillus rhamnosus for our bowels. Now, blues. These are the littler people. You can't say they're short, they're just on the lower end. So you got, and you can't say reds are medium or average. There is no such thing as an average height. There's sort of small, medium and tall, let's say. Okay, so skin tends to be smooth and elastic. Key feature is short and sexual development. So Dolly Parton would be the epitome, or somebody like her anyway. Short and well developed. So, okay, so emotions tend to be even-tempered, cool down quickly if angered, tend to be positive and helpful people. She's gaining some weight. The weight gain with high levels of estrone is all the hips and the thighs. This is the pear shape. With estriol, it's the tummy, and with estradiol, it's just all over, and enlarged sort of secondary sexual characteristics. Okay, see the hand? Look at the hand. These people tend to be shorter, say below 5'5". 5'6" maybe in men. Men tend to be on the shorter side and hairy. Okay, everyone we remember during the update we had with the men, as soon as they found a blue, we lifted the shirt up and there it was. Okay, so one way of verifying whether a man is blue or not is the degree of his hair. Okay, so strong affinity to mercury, which I mentioned earlier on. Low methylene tetrahydrofolate, so there's increased risk of cancer, polymorphism. So they need folate. They require hypochlorite for their immune systems. They tend to not have very high hydrochloric acid, so they make them more not necessarily vegetarian, but they tend to favour lower animal proteins. In fact, they have a bit of a problem because they do need B12, and of course if they are a vegetarian they won't get enough B12, which will lead them or predispose them into other hypoxic conditions. But a little like the Chinese, eat some meat, they have a little bit of duck and a little bit of pork and so on, but small amounts spread over the evening meal rather than tucking into a big steak. Okay, they don't do that. So they tend to be little and often. They react to milk lactose, and that's really, really the important thing. If you've got a true blue person, check them with lactose. That's 50% of the cause of their problems. Open their mouth and see if they've got amalgams. These are the people who will be leaking and they can't detoxify. And when that mercury builds up in the brain, they can't detoxify it very easily at all. They're usually intolerant to alcohol, but they can persist. And some of them do and feel dreadful. And some of them say, well, actually, I just don't feel so good, so I don't bother. So they're good to marry because they're cheap to take out. Okay? Although soft drinks can be pretty expensive these days. And there was a terrible time when we thought Jill was blue. But the alcohol, she didn't really take too much notice of. Tyramine. Tyramine was, there was only one answer, and that's to change her colour. So tyramine is the aging process of tyrosine, which is in aged cheese and avocados and bananas when they start to go off, and chocolate. So sauerkraut, things which are aged, yogurts, anything like that which is aging contains tyramine. And tyramine is a very toxic substance for blue people because they don't have high levels of monoamine oxidase enzyme expression, which leads them on to getting migraines. I haven't yet found a true migraine person who wasn't blue or had a touch of blue in them. They're very sensitive to pesticides, which are estrogen mimickers. So most pesticides are not estrogen structured, but they mimic estrogen by locking onto the same receptor site. So these people tend to be very, very sensitive to toiletries and cosmetics. Okay? Doesn't mean that the green people are fine or the red people, but blue people have really got to take care with checking their toiletries and cosmetics, because they are the ones who have the tendency towards the malignancies and therefore need to make sure they don't take extra estrogen mimickers into their system. So they need to be tested for those. Okay. So diet, generally lowish in animal protein, as I say, but not necessarily to cut it out. They can cut it out if they want, but be aware that anybody who doesn't eat any animal protein may eventually become B12 deficient. Because in my findings, you only really get B12 these days in meat. Okay? Because it's made by ruminants by bacterial fermentation. So I don't think you really get B12 from fish. And certainly the amount from cheese and eggs would not be detectable these days. I haven't yet found that somebody who needs B12 tests positive to needing cheese, eggs or fish. Plenty of fruit and veg, no cow's milk. Again, it should be all right on goat and sheep. Beware of older aging cheese, avocados, chocolates and other. Avoid all the other thing they're very sensitive is aspartame and monosodium glutamate. And these pathways, again, cytochrome P450s to break these down, are low in these people. So they shouldn't drink tonic water, low-calorie drinks, or visit the Chinese restaurant too many times and limit alcohol. Supplements, again, they need B1. B1 is important there for them. That's for the energy. Remember, we're looking here at the recycling, trying to make more methyl donors with these people. Folic acid, B12. So they need choline as well. Try and get their phosphatidylcholine, but also that secondary pathway, do you remember, in the liver that can make methyl donors from choline. So this is why blue people show they need choline. They need the B12 and the folic acid, but they don't need the B6. Sometimes they may do, but they don't generally need the B6 because you don't want to cream off the homocysteine down to cysteine. You want to get it to recycle. So that's the pathway which they favour. Boron, again for bone density here. Iron. This is the only colour that shows to iron. They all seem to get anemic. You look at blue people and they all look a bit pale. They need iron. Maybe they don't get enough because they don't eat red meat. Magnesium, they need magnesium, and they need selenium. Again, very important. has been shown to be anti-cancer, particularly in prostate problems and breast cancer. They need sulfur, which I guess is one of their major ways of detoxifying, and like all of us, they need zinc. They need predominantly the omega-3 plant oils, so they're looking at flaxseed, pumpkin seed, and walnut. Beautiful mix, that. They like the hot spices. Generally, when you ask them, you say, well, you're all right with hot curries and things, they say, yeah, I love them. So they show to chili, which is the hottest, cinnamon and paprika, and herbs is basil, coriander, and dill. So these are the detoxifying. And lastly, the probiotic that shows with them is casei, Lactobacillus casei. Okay. So at this stage, what to do when a person shows to different colours in each eye? This is what you were after, isn't it? Yeah, how to change them. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to challenge for a subconscious emotion. So shall we use you again as our resident patient? So have I got a set of acetates there? You got a set of the cone? Oh yeah, there's some here, Clive. They're already up. So in the straightforward set of acetates, which I think everybody's got these, you've got the red, green and blue acetates. Now, how tall are you? 5'8". He's 5'8". So he's on the cusp there, isn't he? So, is he a green giant? Is he a Scandinavian hunter, gatherer, rapist and pillager? No. Or one of his ancestors? Is he an Oriental man? Or maybe a Mediterranean down there? No. Okay. Is he probably a Caucasian, Celtic, middle height type of person? The answer is yes. Okay. So he's a red. And that's what we would have done 10, 12 years ago. And about 6, 7 years ago, we introduced perhaps people were two body types or a mixture, predominantly one with a little bit of another. And so what we did is we tested on one eye and we tested on the other eye. And sometimes you find you've got somebody who's a hybrid. You know, they're one on one eye and one on another. Okay, so Linda, you were talking about that with you. Could I borrow you? Off you go. So he's about right for his height, 5'8", so he would fit into the middle sort of range there. Now Linda told us she was 5'1½".
Yep, and I was a green with a bit of a blue.
So green is really stretching the imagination.
But then I was a blue.
The blonde hair, is okay.
No,
Yeah.
it's false.
Oh, it's false.
It's false.
So you're not really Scandinavian.
No, not at all.
And I thought I saw you with those high heels that you you got to 5'10". Okay, right. So we could start anywhere here then. Okay. Then she tells me she changed to blue. So let's see what she's doing now. So you were green. Let's try green first of all. You can do this test with glasses on. Okay, but we may not be able to hold that. Can you hold that? Because it's with glasses it's going to slip off. Okay, so there's not a touch of green in you. So whatever we did, so try red. Okay, there's not a touch of red in there. Where's that? Okay, so there's not a touch of red there. And blue. So she weakens to blue. Take to put it on one eye. And the other. So she's blue. So we would be happy she's blue. So we could say, therefore, we would treat her according to that, and we would give her the nutrients, etc., on the blue. Which you've been taking, yes, which is great. Now, I'm just a little bit suspicious here, and only one thing, and that's her hands. She showed me her hands. They're not the hands of a blue. They're long, thin. Look at them. They should be playing the piano. You're unsuitable for manual work. You should take it easy. You should be a person who lives at home and just does have things done for you. No washing up, just playing the piano.
No, I did say to my husband, I'm built to work But I'm not built to clean.
Not built to clean. Absolutely, yeah. Okay. And with nails like that, you shouldn't wash up either. Okay. Don't tell me they're full, so.
No, they're not. No, they're all
You'll
mine.
ruin the story.
No, they're all mine.
You're worse than Cheryl Cole with the
they're
bits
all
that fall off. Right. Now, what we do to see if there's a subconscious emotional problem here, and we touch on to the right greater wing of the sphenoid and the left greater wing of the sphenoid. Okay? So I'm going to do the right one first and then the left. So we're comparing the limbic system, which is the amygdala is the main area of the limbic system, of the right to the left. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take it round the other way. So left to right, there's a problem. Right to left, there isn't. So this is an issue between the left and the right brain. There's a conflict going on, okay? Now, I'm not going to say the conflict is between the left brain and the right because it's that way around, because I don't know. Because with decussation and ipsilaterals and so on, we don't know when you touch this whether that's going across to the right sensory cortex or what. Don't get involved with that. Just say there's a conflict between your logical brain and your intuitive one. And what we found is that when we sort that out, okay, you may change colour. Okay, so be ready for this. Okay, now how do we change it? There are two ways of doing this. We're going to do the quick way, which may not last. Okay, but it will change it certainly in the short term. But the long term one we'll do on somebody else. Okay, we go for the tummy button, and those of you who came on the update know that we use the Miron lights. So instead of using the light box with all the different coloured acetates, we found that if you use the violet flame, this was extremely therapeutic or healing. And we had some light boxes. We haven't got any light boxes here? Oh, we have got light boxes. So what we craftily, this is Clive's when he was using his right brain. Okay? He usually uses his left brain, but he was using his right brain here. He said, well, there was this lovely bulb, if you remember, and this dome. And we used to put the bottles on and display the lovely purple colour, the violet colour through that. And then we thought, well, let's cut the bottom off a bottle, because we tried to get Miron to make us some discs of a particular size, and we found that the bottom of the 100 mil, isn't it, in there? 100 mil fits absolutely perfectly into this. And so when you switch it on, it gives the violet flame through there, and then you put this on to the healing. And what we're going to do is we're putting it through the shrine of God, or the umbilicus as it's called for us, but in Chinese medicine it's called the shrine of God, where chi or life force goes into the human being. Okay? Now this was fantastic. So we bought some boxes and then discovered there weren't any more. How many did we buy? 50, wasn't it? 50. 50, and how many we got left?
I've got about 6.
6 left. Okay. So that produced a problem. So somebody who was on the update said, why don't you just get a torch and do the same thing? So he said you can get LCD, LED, light emitting diodes. And we did this and we were very proud. Clive brought them in. Oh, I bought them, didn't I? I bought them up and we stuck them in. And the light that came out the bottom was blue. So this is strange. You know, Miron light is only supposed to allow the violet through. So clearly the LED light was not a full spectrum. This is why if you are in LED lights, it doesn't look right, does it? There's something odd about it. It's too sort of bright and it's missing certain bits. And clearly it's missing the violet end of the spectrum. Okay, so I think too long in an LED light is not good for you, particularly in the winter, because you haven't got the violet end of the spectrum. You need something which is more broad spectrum. So Clive very carefully, cleverly, and carefully, found a krypton bulb. Okay, so look. So you switch it on, isn't it? And the great thing about this, krypton bulbs are very bright. Maybe halogen is as bright, I'm not sure. But what you do is you show this to the patient. This is no ordinary torch. You see? They needn't see actually, it's a torch. You just hold that round there. Can you see the light? Yeah. Okay, then they can see what it is you're actually doing. Show them so they understand, rather than just, you know, putting it on them, because they think, well, why are you doing that? And explain why you're doing it. Sorry, you're still holding, haven't you?
Yeah, I haven't lost contact.
So you pop the light on the umbilicus for a minute. So let's just, it's useful to have a clock in your treatment room. You can do more than a minute, there's no harm obviously, but if you do less than it, it may not hold. So what we're going to do for Linda is we're going to give her 1 minute of zapping with the krypton bulb. What was the program Krypton Factor? Was it a science fiction thing? Can't remember. What? Krypton Factor was an insurance. Oh, an endurance test. I thought insurance test. What? Intelligence. Super skills. You're the only one old enough, Gary, to remember the program. It was good. Yeah, I see. Okay, how are we doing? So it's better that the patient doesn't talk during this. The reason is that some people can't talk without moving their hands. And as soon as they've lost the contact, then it doesn't work. Okay? So this is why you can't do this yourself, because to do it yourself, you've got to hold the torch. Even if you could manage to set it up, you can't switch it on and get it in position. So you've got to get somebody else to do it. So if you go left, right again, okay? Sometimes it's right, left, but most times it's left, right. And that bears no relationship to whether the person's right-handed or left-handed. Okay, good. So, interesting side effect that we found from this is sometimes people change their colour completely. You know, after that, Paul. Okay, your dream's coming true. Right. No, we'll give you the red in a minute. Let's go for green. Suddenly you've grown 6 inches. Nah. We've done that one. This is the red one we need to do. Whoa. Okay. Now, there. And go there. Now she's red, which is what she should be by her body. She's just not quite tall enough. Did you say something about your mother?
Yeah.
Your mother
is short.
Is short. She fitted the program as well.
Of
being red.
She was testing as blue.
And she was testing as blue as well. So sometimes things are not, she's not always what it is. There may be a transition. When I first did this, a year and a half ago with Jill, she was a green and I was a red. Okay. And then we did the 2 eyes and Jill was a green on her left eye and a blue on her right. And sometimes she would become blue dominant and sometimes, most of the time, it was green. Okay. And then we did this back in June and she went blue. But I looked at her hands and they're too long. Just stick your hands out there. They're too long. But she doesn't quite make it. She's 5'4.5". And the half is very important. I said, sorry, I've got to stretch your spine. You know, if you want to be a red, she said, I want to be a red. She loves meat, and that's not a vegetarian speaking. That's not a blue. And I won't say how much she can drink, but she can drink a lot more than a blue with no problems. Okay, so she fits into the red type much more. So we stretched her. Now we did what I'm going to do now, and she changed into a red. So she's delighted, except for the fact she's not very good with wheat now. Okay, before she got used to not being very good with dairy. Okay, but now she can tolerate dairy, tolerate cheese, but not so good on meat. So you got to take there's no good colour. You got to take, if you want to change, you got to take the consequences of being the other colour. Okay, so what colour did you want to be, Vanessa? You don't know. You've got to make up your mind what colour you're going to be if we're going to change you. So you are from now on a red.
I'm a red now.
You're a red. So you now buy a new lot of liquids. It's great stuff. New oils, please. She's got the wrong fuel in. So you've got to change from blue to red, please.
What's the significance then of her being blue? Why was she blue?
It was a transition. She was blue, during the update it was the transition period. So she went to the blue. Jill, as far as I know, did you say you started as a green, then a blue? So you're the second person in the world that we've treated, and only, who's been all 3 colours. So tell us next time what it's like, She's been Chinese, she's been Scandinavian, and now she's Celtic.
So, how do we know what her true colour is?
Her true colours, it's her body. Look at her hands. Okay, she's short.
After the neon light,
Yes, she was blue, but it was obviously a transition period, okay, for that. She went blue. There was obviously blue things she had to sort out. But look at the hands. Base it on the height, yes, that's a really, really important. But sometimes you get a shorter red person, and sometimes you get obviously a taller one, okay? Nothing is exactly 5'5". I put those figures, that's what I generally find, but don't count them. Because here we've got a real abnormality of a 5'1.5" red. So she should be much, you know, much taller. But somehow something stopped her from growing that last bit. And so her body type should be a bit taller. And her hands has taken the information, but her legs, did you have your legs bound up as a child?
I don't think so.
No wonder your mum was jealous that you were getting taller than her, so she stopped you growing.
Would you say
You
then
can have subconscious, the left-right brain integration. I had that confusion, how to express.
Well, that's why I need somebody else now. So we need somebody else who's confused. You're confused, are you? Okay. Out you come. Right. You go down and we'll...
interesting thing this though, Chris. I was taking the blue herbs and spices as
Yeah.
well, which I was really enjoying.
Yeah, sorry, I've got to take those away.
I may have been overdosing on them, and then I found when I've tested, I don't need the blue herbs and spices.
No, that may be because you cleaned the stuff out anyway.
Yeah.
You won't have done any harm because that's what you showed up to literally
Yeah.
5 minutes ago. So that's who you were. Now, you know, you have achieved a difference. So what were you?
I was green,
She was green.
and then I was blue.
Then you
No,
blue.
half green, half blue.
Half green, half blue. Which half was green?
And then I was blue.
Blue, green, blue, yeah. But she's, how tall are you?
5, 6.5.
Yeah, 5, 6.5. So she's in that red zone, isn't she, really? Let's have a look at your hands. Yeah, long thinnies. Okay, she should really probably be a red. Okay, so let's see what she shows to. Let's hope. So let's try the red first of all. Let's make sure you're strong. How are we doing time? Okay, no red, or you don't weaken to red. So you're weakening to blue, blue, whoop, blue. Okay, so she's weakening to blue, blue. But is that the real her? You know, this is the point. So it may not be the real her because she's taller, her hands are longer and slimmer. So let's put her on the amygdala points and let's see if there's a limbic or subconscious emotional problem. Take them off and now do left to right. Yes. Okay, so she's got a conflict in there still. Now what I could do is just to zap you, okay, and change you. That would be the quick way. Now I'm going to show you the alternative, which is going to kill two birds with one stone. Hopefully. It may not. And it may not be get to the real cause as quickly. It may be why Linda went to a transition. This way, I think will have a much more lasting effect. So, this we did in the update. Okay, these was really interesting, and I personally have had so much fun doing this with patients. And it's very early to know what it is we're doing because we don't know how to interpret this. We just know that everything that you've ever thought of, and that includes the stresses and happy events, are things you've seen, things you've touched or felt, things that you've heard, things you smelt and things you tasted. We don't really have any other senses except a sixth sense, of course, but of the 5 physical senses to the brain, everything that you think about really comes from those 5 senses, okay? Therefore, you have to put that information in to concoct any imaginary sort of situation. So the brain can play tricks on you, and you can begin to think something's real, or you can think of something and have nightmares and so on. But all it is a jumbling up of all the information that's ever gone in there, which is why you should never let children watch horror films, because they'll pattern it down. So vision, hearing, smell, taste and touch. So if there is an abnormality, or an imbalance, not an abnormality, an imbalance in the left to right brain limbic system, let's see where it is, okay? It could be in any of those 5, it could be in all 5, okay? So let's see. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through them one by one. Now, if you haven't done this before, you'll need to watch very carefully. So if you can stick this up on the screen, Gary. Okay, very important with the vision is that you touch where you see from. Now we see through the pupil, okay? So it's no good, close your eyes, it's no good touching at the top because that's not where you see. You might miss this. Now normally people see, well, we can see when she opened her eyes where she sees from. She's putting the fingers over exactly the point of where she sees, okay? So do that, you can do that on yourself and say, yeah, that's right, that's right. Okay, so I'm doing the right to the left, and then we do the left to the right. You don't have to do it in that order, but I do it because then I know that I've done it. When I stop and talk to the patient and I think, now did I do left to right, right to left, I can't remember. Always do the same routine and then you can't go wrong. So vision, nothing coming up at the moment. Hearing, so we go in the ear on the right. Actually in the ear, it's no good just touching the ear. Okay, take them out, and then in the left and in the right. By this time, the confusion of the patient, they usually can work out what you're doing, and they can usually continue. So then we get a little bit of tummy, and tickle that side, the right, tickle the left. Okay, I've learnt not to do the tickling. Patients can't tickle. They say you can't tickle yourself, but somebody else can. Okay. Now, next finger. Okay, so now we're going to use the middle finger because we're going to touch the nostril on the right and touch the nostril on the left. Don't say stick your finger up your nose because they start to giggle and look ashamed. Now do them around the other way. Okay, so obviously we don't want to use the same finger as going to go in the eye or the ear, up the nose. And then we use the fourth finger or ring finger. Stick your tongue out slightly. So you're going to go to the right tongue to the left tongue, and then the left to the right. And that's where it is. Okay, so last one. Okay, so stay there, and she just gets 1 minute of the krypton factor. Now, when you've done one, the first one that comes up is the most important one for the patient at that time. Okay, it doesn't mean it's the oldest, it doesn't mean it's the newest one put in, it's the most important one. So we have a saying, or in England there's a saying, something leaves a bad taste in your mouth. You know, and that may be what emotionally she's feeling. Often there's a problem with the mouth or the gut, the gastrointestinal system. So somebody who's got a gut problem will usually show the mouth is the most pressing bit. So subconsciously there's something, you know, oral, alimentary involved here. Often they were very fussy eaters, not always, but most of them tell me they were very fussy eaters as children, and they're less fussy now, but they were fussy eaters as children. But they're more particular now. They enjoy the food, but they know what they enjoy. Okay, now, that's the first one. So just go back on and let's make sure that that's gone. That's all. Good. Okay, now you go back. Okay, so we go for the eyes again, close eyes. So we're going to go to the eyes. Swap them over. Good, excellent. Right ear to the left ear. Right ear, that's it. To the left ear, good. And then around the other way. Excellent, okay. Tickle the tummy. Tickle the tummy. Around the other way. Good. And then middle finger up the nostril, on the nostril. Yeah, there's, we got me on the left one. That's it. And then around the other way. You find that when the nasal ones show up, the person often has a respiratory problem. They've got sinus problems, they're clogged up in their nose, or a respiratory system problem. So it's almost telling you that's their most pressing problem. You seem to be okay on there. So the likelihood is this one, left to right, will be clear now. Okay, so that's clear. All right? So effectively we've done, you may have had to do 2 or 3 of this. You know, we've had a few people who needed all 5, and other people only need the 1. So now we go back. Okay. Has she stretched into a Viking? No. Is she Oriental? No. So her dream has come true. She can go out Saturday night, isn't it tonight? Yes, Saturday night. Okay. Not too many sulfites though, remember. Quality wine and drink. Much spirits as you like. German beer. You can go down German beer colour. Okay, so you're now a red. Okay, so that will hold much, much better. Okay, so now we can see the real her is a red, which fits with her fingers and also her height. You know, it's much more, you know, 5'6", did you say? 5'6", spot on in the middle range of what she should be there. So you're not a, you know, you're perfect fit for that, and the hands give it your way of what you should be. So you're really a thyroid type, but you've been, you know, a few journeys, haven't you?
Yeah.
Did you say you were a bit of green and a bit of blue?
Yeah.
So she's actually been all three. But I think now you'll be fixed into that one. Now in a couple of weeks, maybe when you come back with the patient, it may be that, you know, they need a little bit more treatment. Probably the colour won't all stay, but she may need another bit of work on the tongue. Now the next one that you do will be at a deeper level. Okay, it might not be older or newer, but it will be at a deeper level. So it's like unpeeling an onion. The first lot that you do will be the most important ones. Okay, and then the next ones will start to display, and sometimes you have to do it 4 or 5 times before you get it really and lasts and is strong. Okay, so that's you done, right? So that's how you do it to check. So first of all, in order to be able to check, have I gone? Am I still on? Yeah, okay. In order to test the right amygdala or greater wing of the sphenoid to the left and the left to the right. If either of those weaken, you know there's a subconscious problem. Okay? So we don't know, as I say, the meaning of all these. What we do know is if it's a vision thing, there are things that we don't want to see. Vision is something, if you've got visual problems, you have visual problems. Are you short-sighted? One short, one long. She doesn't want to see distance and she doesn't want to see close. Okay? So psychologically there's things that she doesn't want to look at in the future or in the distance and also close. It's very interesting because you start to see that, you know, with you I would almost guarantee you vision will be certainly, if not the first one, it will be the second one that will come up. And then you think, well, what is the meaning of this? Why is this hardwired? And what is the condition that the person is suffering from as a result of their one? Where's Tori? What was do you have any sort of tummy problems?
Yeah, I've had heaps of gut problems, but I've also got problems with my actual tongue, with the, what do you call it?
Tongue thrust? Yeah. And you get digestive problems? Yeah. Were you a fussy eater as a child?
I wouldn't eat a lot, no.
Yeah. Yeah, people tell me all sorts of stories when you say that. You know, one patient said, and she still doesn't eat any vegetables, and she said, well, I was so bad, she said, my mother wouldn't let us get down from the table until I had finished. So my brother used to eat my food so that when my mother wasn't looking, so she'd finish the food so they could get down. The brother is a portly man. But fantastic. You know, the stories when you start to sell this and get them to tell is really interesting. But it just dawned on me then when I was treating somebody the other day who was all bunged up and the nose showed up. And I thought, well, that makes sense, doesn't it? Somebody's nose is going to show who's got a respiratory problem. And it may not be just in the nose, it could be right down in the chest itself. And then people with, you know, colon problems will still show with the oral cavity. Once you've established what they're real, you take them right back, they won't change. Okay? Yours was obviously an in-between one that you became, if you like Linda, a blue during that particular seminar. But they should have asked a little bit more deeper and looked at your hands and thought, this isn't right. This is not a blue person's hands. Who was it? Who said?
I'm a blue.
You're a blue. Let's have a look. Yeah, stick your hands up. Okay, have a look at your hands. Okay, now have a look at Tori's hands. So you stick your hands up. You see? Turn them around. They're longer. Look at those. Those are the ones you see on... What?
She's got knuckles.
She's got little knuckles, that's right. They always develop knuckles on there. You wait till you're about 60 or 70 and they'll be big knuckles. But, you know, there's a total difference. They should have recognised that you're not a blue. Even though you displayed a blue, you've got to remember. And also, never, it's okay, you know, you're not going to do any harm, but never trust everything in this light in a seminar because you got artificial light.
So say, for example, they came up as a blue.
Yeah.
Would you not necessarily give them the blue nutrition and wait?
Well, I have a sneaking suspicion that if you do this, and then this, you may get that transition one. Whereas if you do the 5 senses, you get the same result, but you get to the core of the person. So I have a suspicion that it's a better way of doing it.
We did the 5 senses last time.
Yeah, and you still remain blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, then you did the right thing. and you've been taking your blue nutrients. But you're not that now.
So
How much of the bottle you got left?
I'm not worried about that.
Yeah, nor are we.
This is on my head.
We don't give a rebate for a half bottle, do we?
Yeah.
You have to apply to the complaints division of the staff. The complaints officer will do it.
Basically, their healing journey, so they would go, that you would put them on the blue,
Yeah.
and then later down the line you would put them on the red.
Yes, if you change them, then you're going to go back. But what I implore you to realise is take the height. That's the main thing I go on, and the hand, and then see if the whole thing fits. And then occasionally you get an anomaly where you get a short red, and maybe you get a long red. You get a tall red. So anything is possible, but generally it's 5'5" to 5'7", 5'8", something in that region. And you can more or less say that's going to be a red person. But you never get a tall blue. We have had blues, in the past who've been, 5'10", 6 foot. But look at their hands. If their hands aren't the right shape, there's no way they're blues. Okay? You just don't get a tall, true blue person. You'd be a giant in China, unless you were the person leading the Chinese in the Olympics. And that person, do you remember seeing him with the flag? He was 7 foot. Fantastic. He must have been, I think he was 2 people joined together.
Chris, I come from a family who've got a long, long history of thyroid and cholesterol problems and heart problems.
Yeah,
And all of us are short.
yeah.
And I've been now told I was a red for years and years and years, suddenly become a blue. But I'm still, I've still got a thyroid problem, and I still got.
Well, you were red, you see. So you will show the. Now you've changed, hopefully, to your real colour. You'll adopt the profile of a blue person. So those
my
tendencies.
whole family. But I was wondering if it's possible that the the SNP.
Yes.
Could that be the family carrying through?
It could, yes.
All of us are doing
Yes,
it.
that's right. It could be. You need checking. That's the best answer, is to check and see what you need as far as your vitamins and minerals is all determined. But to see if you've got a genetic SNP, not a slip, Freudian slip. Yeah. Okay, genetic SNP polymorphism in there. Yeah, because you may be that you need something over and above the blue nutrients. Okay, which is for you. So, yeah. So get rid of some relative. What you will find, that you'll find it much easier to detect that once you've done the work that we did there. Once you've done, the 5 emotions, and you've got them really sorted out, then you'll find whether there's a SNP there quite easily. Because she's now perfectly balanced. Okay, she's probably the only person in the room who's perfectly balanced. You'll be temporarily balanced, but you're perfectly balanced at the moment. Because we've actually ended up treating a subconscious emotion. We don't know what the emotion was, because we didn't do that bit, but we went in and treated the subconscious. In other words, we treated the conflict within the brain, and that creates harmony. And therefore, when you're in harmony, you'll show all the things that you need.
Does that mean we can't trust the colours in daylight? The red, green, blue?
Trust nothing. Don't even trust yourself.
If they weaken to blue
Yes.
in one eye and green in the other.
Yeah, then they're hybrid. Then we know that they're a mixture, and you need to get them one way or the other. They need to make a decision. Are you green or are you blue? Okay. You will be one or the other, or red. It is normal to be one constitution. So base it on the height, base it on the hand shape. Okay? So then you think, this doesn't fit. We got a tall blue or a short green. Then you think there's something wrong here. Do the left, right, and think about if you want to got 5. Well, it's not even 5 minutes. It would take you 5 minutes, literally, if you had all 5 show up. Maybe 6 minutes to do the testing. But the likelihood is you only get 1 or 2 to show up, so it only takes a short while. But once you've got harmony in the brain, all this stuff, which we used to call switching and things in old kinesiology, just disappears, because that's what it is. The switching is your left brain is winning over your right and vice versa. So all you've got to do is create harmony. And if you want to do it that way with the torch, or the longer winded one is to do each of the reflexes, or the sensory inputs, not reflexes, and create the real harmony. When you think, well, what causes the disharmony is, of course, the thought process of what you've seen and what you've heard and what you tasted and what you touched. So we've got two parts to the mind. We've got the thinking part, the conscious bit, which may be negative in our thought process. We may be coming into the world from a negative point of view. Or we may be coming in a positive, but this is consciously. So we're making decisions. So we call this the conscious or the thinking part. And then you've got the subconscious, which is your memory of everything that's ever happened. Okay? Now the trouble is that the subconscious works, we need the subconscious because it works all our behind the scenes. It's like the program that we have running in the computer. It runs the whole scene. It runs your breathing, your walking, your digestion. You don't have to think about any of this. You don't have to think about how to change your pupils to see, and etc. And this is all great. That's all subconscious or autonomic. But it works 95% of the time. So only 5% of the time do we actually think consciously. So 5% of the time we're actually thinking about things. And what psychologists say is of that 5%, 75% or 3/4 of our thoughts are negative. That's because they only see negative people. You know, if they saw positive people, they'd probably change their mind. If you only saw happy people. Now, the great thing is, people are really divided into those that do have control over their lives and those who don't, who life controls them. So a lot of people are in that lower, unconscious, negative side. But the world gets great creation from these people, as we'll see. They're great creators. They're some of the best musicians, poets, writers, artists, musicians, and so on. But if they're in control, then they play beautiful music. So all of Van Gogh's were really depressing. So some poetry is pretty bad, pretty depressing. And you can see that comes from a dark side of person. So you're either in control or you're not in control. And we don't know from a person, you know, whether they're in control of their life or they're not. You can suppose that they are by their conversation and things, but you don't really know what a person's up to. But you can see in their face. You can see if a person's troubled. Or you think you can see in a person's trouble, because you can see if they're happy, you can see if they're sad, you can see if they're, you know, worried about something, or if they're angry. You can see this. But you get this in an imbalance in faces, which the human eye can't see. So you get an imbalance to the left face to the right. And the right face in the upper part of the muscles around the orbit tend to come from the facial nerve, and this reflects ipsilaterally. So it's the same brain, the right brain reflects basically into the right face. It opens the eye up and it works around the facial muscles. The lower part is contralateral. The left face is a reflection of the left brain, with the lower part being contralateral. But generally, the left face is the left brain, and the right brain is the right face. So we're actually two people. And years ago, they did this, I can remember in the 1960s, showing the people, they split them down the middle and said, this is the left brain, this is the right brain, or right person. And hey presto, there were two people. And I thought, oh, yeah, that's interesting, we're two people. And then it was left at that. But Avtandil Ashwavili, who's a Russian professor in perception, was asked whether he could find a facial recognition pattern for terrorists at airports. So he studied terrorists, and there's plenty of those in Russia. So he took, you know, lots and lots of photographs, and hey presto, he did find there was a pattern that he could recognize within terrorists. His research also led him to find out other antisocial behavior. So he found out depressives who were suiciders, and he found out people who were killers. Okay, it's all in their face. Okay, you can see this. So it's staring you in the face. So next time you go on an airplane, you look at the person next to you and see what they are. How do they categorize into this? Okay, you want somebody who's in control of their life. Okay, not in a negative, destructive way, because there are some people who are really destructive. You know, occasionally you meet somebody like this, not physically necessarily destructive, but they just suck the energy out of you, and they're so negative. And you think, no wonder you're ill or you've got problems. And you get other people who usually don't come as patients, who are really, you know, highly balanced up there. And you think, well, lovely people. And you don't know what it is about them, but you look at them and you just want to be with them because they emanate this loveliness about them. And what it is, it's a balance or harmony. And this is what a man looks for in a woman. And he doesn't know what he looks for, but he actually looks for symmetry or harmony within a woman. He doesn't want a woman who's got anger or sadness in the face. So they might have one brain that's happy and one that's sad. And, you know, very few people are symmetrical. And the facial nerve is what operates the face. Okay? Hence it's called the facial nerve. And the main input to the facial nucleus is from the amygdala, which is the central sort of like rheostat or dimmer switch for the whole of the limbic system. So all our vegetative system and our subconscious emotions are all mediated through the amygdala. And then that feeds into the facial nerve. And we have thousands upon thousands of fibers of the facial nerve. So small changes in the amygdala can change our facial pattern. And this is sometimes why you don't see it physically with the human eye. The human eye can't see this. You have to actually take a picture, split it, and build two faces. And this is a lot easier because we've now got the program how to do it in English. So I want to just, before we just demonstrate this in a couple of cases, we want to know what happens if a person has a conscious problem. In other words, they're in the higher or lower sphere, but they're out of balance. The left brain is fighting in the conscious zone. We've looked at the subconscious, which is here. So we need to do the old emotional stress reflexes. So the ESRs, those of you who've done kinesiology, and it's most of you who've done some kind, know that there's emotional stress points, and these traditionally were on the neurovascular for the pectoralis major clavicular muscle on the frontal eminence. But in fact, if you go down a little bit, it's a more accurate point, is just inferior to that, which is just above the eyebrow. Same position, but just down a little bit. And this is where the orbital frontal part of the frontal cortex is. So the orbital frontal area is where consciousness works through. So this is where thinking, and they call this the executive center, and it sits literally on top of the bony orbit. So just above about there is a better position to actually therapy localize. And very often, if you put the two fingers on together, nothing happens. So you say, oh, emotionally, no problems, you know. But if you therapy localize the right to the left, strong, and then the left to the right, it goes weak. Okay? So again, there's a conflict. You can't say it's the left brain fighting the right or vice versa, but there's a conflict between the two hemispheres. So one is the cause and one is the effect and so on. So you do the same thing. If they weaken to left to right or right to left, okay, take them in weakness and zap them for a minute into the umbilicus. That way you treat the conscious part or the thinking part. So when you've done what we did there with the subconscious, you must do the conscious part as well. Okay, if you don't, the subconscious will come back again if the thinking process is negative, because they just rewire it back in again. So you must create harmony in the mind as it is now and in the memory. So what we did with the two is we sort of cleaned it up a little bit in the brain, and by the healing light we reduced the conflict associated with taste in her case, and with Linda we don't know what it was because we didn't do the emotions. All right? So there's 2 points, 2 parts. You must do the subconscious by the 5 senses, and you must do the emotional stress reflex if they're positive. They may not be positive.
End of chapter 8.